Over 1,000 are dead, the toll is rising, thousands are injured, and more than 50,000 remain missing. This is the tragic fate that befell Venezuela after being hit by two powerful earthquakes at a time when almost all of their citizens were inside their homes. This disaster is now considered one of the most devastating earthquakes to hit the country in more than a century. So in this video, we will discuss how the deadly earthquake started, why it caused such widespread destruction, what the victims experienced at the very moment of the quake, and how thousands of rescuers continue to fight to find people who might still be alive under the rubble. Mr. Good Vibes, yeah. On the 24th of June this year, many Venezuelans were busy celebrating a national holiday. Because most offices and schools were closed, more people than usual were inside their homes, apartments, hotels, and establishments at that time. And others were busy watching the FIFA World Cup in their homes. But by 6:04 in the evening, the day suddenly changed for millions of the country's residents. A magnitude 7.2 earthquake struck the northern part of Venezuela. According to seismologists from the U.S. Geological Survey, or USGS, the epicenter of the earthquake was located about 23 kilometers southeast of the town of Yumare in the state of Yaracuy and near the city of Moron in Carabobo State. The tremor was recorded at a depth of more than 20 kilometers underground. Within just a few seconds, some old buildings began to collapse, cracks appeared in apartments and houses, and residents ran outside to save themselves. In some areas, walls and ceilings have already collapsed, leaving others trapped inside elevators and basement parking areas. But while many thought that the worst part of the disaster was over, a stronger and more destructive tremor struck. Just 38 seconds later, exactly 6:05 p.m., a second earthquake with a magnitude of 7.5 struck almost the same area. It was shallower, with an estimated depth of only about 10 kilometers below the ground. Because of this, the shaking on the surface was even more intense. The buildings that survived the first earthquake shook even more, while some of the structures that were already damaged completely collapsed. Many of the people who had just started running out of their homes and offices panicked again when they felt the second tremor, which experts say is one of the strongest earthquakes to hit Venezuela in its history. Experts called this event a seismic doublet, a rare occurrence where two strong earthquakes of almost equal magnitude happen in the same area within a very short period of time. According to experts, it is likely that the first earthquake triggered the movement of another part of the fault system, which caused the second tremor to happen immediately. Venezuela is located at the boundary of the Caribbean Plate and the South American Plate. These two tectonic plates have been sliding past each other for millions of years. Over time, enormous forces build up between them until they suddenly release, causing a powerful earthquake. According to the USGS, the second earthquake with a magnitude of 7.5 brought greater force and caused more damage. In Caracas, the capital of Venezuela and home to more than 3 million residents, an intense scene of fear and confusion began at the very moment the second earthquake struck. In the high-rise apartment buildings, the loud sounds of cracking concrete could be heard as windows shattered one after another. Some residents who had managed to run outside after the first earthquake were forced to crouch on the ground or cling to posts as the surroundings shook violently once again. In some buildings, the staircases collapsed while people were still rushing down, causing many to fall and others to be buried. In a residential complex in Chacao district, a part of the building completely collapsed just seconds after the second tremor. According to survivors, some people jumped from the lower floors to escape, while others remained trapped inside their apartments because the doors were jammed and could no longer be opened. Due to the twisting of the structure in Los Palos Grandes, a family was watching a FIFA World Cup match when their television started shaking and items began falling off the shelves. As they were going down the stairs, they reportedly heard a loud collapse from the neighboring building, followed by a thick cloud of dust that quickly engulfed the entire street. Unfortunately, one of the family members was trapped inside the house, and they are hoping that he is still alive and just stuck under the debris. In the offices that were still open at that time, many employees took cover under their desks, while others ran outside carrying only their cell phones and wallets. A woman told the local media that while she was on the second floor of their office, she saw part of the ceiling give way and the lights in the hallway fall down. Transportation facilities were not spared either. At Simon Boulevard International Airport, passengers screamed and rushed to get out when panels and parts of the terminal building's ceiling started to fall. Some passengers hid under the seats while waiting for the shaking to subside. In the basement parking areas of some condominiums, some motorists were trapped after the power went out and the automated gates stopped working. Some had to break the emergency exit windows to get out as the shaking gradually subsided. Then, in different parts of the city, the cries of children, the shouts of people asking for help, and the horns of vehicles left in the middle of the road could be heard. In just a few minutes, many parks, basketball courts, and vacant lots turned into evacuation centers as thousands of residents decided not to return to their homes. While residents in Caracas continue to evacuate, the true extent of the damage in other parts of Venezuela is gradually being revealed. A few hours after the earthquake, videos and photos of buildings reduced to piles of cement, steel, and shattered glass began to appear on television and social media. The region of La Guaira was hit the hardest, an important city on the coast of the Caribbean Sea located north of Caracas. This is where many hotels, apartment complexes, offices, and the homes of thousands of families are located. According to authorities, dozens of buildings sustained severe damage, while some completely collapsed. One of the most horrifying scenes was the collapse of the 10-story Edwards Hotel boutique. Based on videos confirmed by journalists, only the entrance of the building was left standing, while the rest of it completely collapsed and turned into a mountain of concrete. There are fears that many guests and employees were still inside the building when the disaster happened. In the city of Caracas, more than 250 kilometers from the capital city, Caracas, another multi-story hotel completely collapsed. In El Honquito, west of the capital, a video captured the building as its pillars slowly gave way before it completely collapsed in front of people who were screaming and running away. Not only hotels but many apartment buildings and residential complexes were affected. In La Guaira, many of them sustained irreparable damage. Some families who survived were forced to spend the night in parks, by the roadside, and in open spaces because they feared their homes could collapse at any moment. In total, it is estimated that more than 250 major buildings, including hotels, offices, hospitals, condominiums, and public buildings, were damaged or completely destroyed in various parts of Venezuela. At least 8 hospitals sustained structural damage, forcing many patients to be transferred to temporary medical tents and field hospitals. The country's main infrastructure was also severely affected. Due to the damage sustained by Simon Bolivar International Airport, the airport was temporarily closed and all commercial flights were cancelled. Metro and train operations were also suspended while engineers assessed the safety of the tracks, bridges, and stations. Meanwhile, power and communication outages spread further. Many parts of Caracas and La Guaira lost internet and cell phone signal. Because of this, thousands of families were unable to immediately send word to their loved ones, causing reports of missing persons to quickly increase. By midnight of June 24, rescuers began to hear screams and knocking from beneath some of the collapsed buildings. An elderly woman in La Guaira told a journalist that she could still hear the voice of her grandchild from beneath the rubble, but they didn't have enough equipment to remove the large concrete blocks, according to a resident who was helping in the search for survivors. Most people were using shovels, hammers, and their bare hands to dig because there was a lack of heavy machinery in the area. But as the desperate search for survivors continued, the first official count of the dead, injured, and missing began to arrive. And the numbers being gradually released by the authorities were even more alarming. By 3 o'clock in the morning of June 25, almost 9 hours after the 2 powerful earthquakes, the Venezuelan government began to release the first official count of the victims. At first, only 32 people were confirmed dead and more than 700 were injured. But even the officials admitted that these numbers were only temporary because there were many areas that rescuers had not yet reached. As the sun rose the next day, the extent of the damage became clearer from the air. In some parts of La Guaira, there were community blocks where 2 or 3 buildings completely disappeared from where they once stood. In other areas, only the walls remained standing while steel, furniture, and the residents' personal belongings were scattered around. In the morning, Interim President Delcy Rodriguez declared a national state of emergency to expedite the deployment of additional personnel, equipment, and funds for search and rescue operations. At the same time, the country continued to be shaken by aftershocks. According to seismologists, more than 130 tremors were recorded within just 24 hours after the main earthquake. Although most were weaker, some were still strong enough to cause new collapses in buildings that were already damaged. Because of this, rescuers were forced to temporarily stop some operations whenever a new tremor was felt. At an apartment complex in Chacao, civil defense personnel had to retreat after the remaining part of a wall collapsed while they were searching for survivors. As the hours passed, the death toll also quickly increased. By the afternoon of June 26, at least 235 people were confirmed dead, while more than 4,300 were injured. But by June 28, the confirmed death toll had reached more than 1,400, and the number of missing people continued to rise. Even now, authorities fear that this number could rise significantly in the coming days. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, there is a 44% chance that the total number of deaths could exceed 10,000 based on the strength, depth, and extent of the damage caused by the earthquake. There is also a 30% chance that the number of victims could reach up to 100,000 if it is confirmed that many people were trapped in the collapsed buildings. One of the biggest problems for the authorities is the huge number of missing people or those who cannot be contacted. 2 online platforms created by citizens have already received between 24,000 and 50,000 reports of people who have not yet been found or have not yet been contacted by their families. Not all of these cases mean that the people have died or are trapped under the rubble. Many of them may just be in evacuation centers or have lost cell phone signal. However, the government has confirmed that at least 200 people are believed to still be alive but remain trapped under the collapsed structures. As more desperate families search for news about their loved ones, the first groups of international aid have started to arrive. But despite this, it is clear that Venezuela does not have enough resources to deal with one of the biggest disasters to hit the country in the past century. The next challenge is how quickly aid from other countries can arrive before the chances of saving the lives of those still trapped under the rubble run out. As the number of dead and injured continues to rise, aid from different parts of the world has also started to arrive. Because of the extent of the damage and Venezuela's lack of heavy equipment for search and rescue operations, the government was forced to request immediate assistance from the international community. The United States was among the first to respond. President Donald Trump's administration sent approximately $150 million in immediate aid, including military transport aircraft, specialized urban search and rescue teams, doctors, medicine, and equipment for finding survivors under the rubble. The U.S. Southern Command also instructed their personnel to help assess the damage and deliver supplies to the affected areas. The United Nations also expressed its support and immediately expanded its humanitarian mission in Venezuela. The head of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs stated that a massive response is needed. Global cooperation is needed to address the needs of millions of affected residents. El Salvador sent 300 rescuers and 50 tons of equipment and relief supplies. Mexico, Ecuador, Brazil, Chile, and the Dominican Republic also promised assistance. Meanwhile, the European Union activated their satellite monitoring system to help identify the areas with the most severe damage and to speed up the coordination of rescue teams. The Simon Bolivar International Airport was partially reopened after 2 days, but only for the landing of cargo planes carrying humanitarian aid and foreign rescue teams. Specialists also gradually arrived, bringing rescue dogs, thermal cameras, and sonic listening devices capable of detecting knocks or shouts from beneath thick layers of concrete. As the search continued, several countries also began releasing reports about their citizens who were missing in Venezuela. According to the government of Spain, no fewer than 80 Spanish nationals were still missing. Other embassies are also continuing to investigate whether there are foreign tourists or workers among the missing. According to the latest records, between 24,000 and almost 50,000 people still cannot be contacted or have not yet been reunited with their families. Although many of them are expected to be safe and have only lost communication due to the loss of signal and internet, authorities fear that a significant number of people may still be buried under the collapsed buildings. Meanwhile, the country continues to experience shortages in the supply of gasoline, water, and electricity. Many schools remain closed, while some hospitals are operating only with generators. Thousands of families have been forced to stay in evacuation centers, tent cities, and temporary shelters while waiting for the results of the inspection of their homes. Despite the tragedy, there have also been some miracles. Some babies and elderly people were reported to have been pulled out alive from the rubble after being trapped for more than a day. But for the thousands of families still waiting for news about their loved ones, every passing hour remains difficult. This tragedy is a reminder that no country is safe from the forces of nature. No matter how peaceful a day may seem, everything can change in just a few seconds when a powerful earthquake strikes. For us Filipinos who also live in a country crossed by many fault lines and frequently experience earthquakes, it's important not to ignore preparedness. Know the safest part of your home, discuss the evacuation plan with your family, and set aside emergency supplies because when the ground starts shaking, you often have no time left to prepare. And the only thing you can rely on to survive certain death is the preparation you made before the disaster struck.